introductions.
Sure.
Carol, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Carol Cordiello, and I live at Brittany Terrace in Orange County, New York.
Right.
And Anne?
I'm Ann Radici from Lakeville Village in Geneseo, New York, and I am the treasurer and
Great.
been involved since the beginning.
And someone from 914-485. 914-850-5312.
That's
Welcome.
me, John, but I'm on my mobile, so I can't do apparently the video isn't showing.
Is it Brenda?
Yes,
Yeah.
it
Hey, Brenda.
is.
I want 10
I'm
points.
sorry, but I'm not on video, so
It's okay. Thanks for joining, Brenda.
And Brenda's
you're welcome.
with Carol at Brittany Terrace.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, Brenda.
So, so why don't we start off, Dennis? What's been your experience of the process so far, and what would you want to make sure other people know before they start it?
Well, our loan is up this December. We've owned our park for 10 years. So we started way back in January, beginning to get a hold of some banks, talk to ROC. There's a lot of things that I didn't know we had to do for a balloon payment that you have to redo. The appraisal I could understand, but you have to redo your conditions reports. You have to redo all the environmental study, basically everything that you did when you bought the park, you have to redo. So, which is, it's not a, it's a pretty good substantial amount of money. Our conditions report was $7,000. Our appraisal was $5,000, $5,500. So don't be surprised when it's time to refinance that this is up and coming, because no offense to anybody, ROC or anybody, but nobody told us that. We did have money, or
Yeah,
we do
we
have
feel
money
the
that,
same.
you know, saved, that we're paying a lot of it. We just have it out of pocket to pay for that. But other than that, it's a pretty simple process. Lining up everything. We have this week we had the appraisals done already, which was really great. Our appraisal when we first bought the park 10 years ago was 4.5 million. And now the new appraisal came at 6.8 million. So we've done a lot of improvements. We've paved almost all the 90% of the roads, put playgrounds in. We have a tree trimming program. We have a maintenance program for our leach fields and septic tanks. So we have a lot of things that we're doing that have improved the park. There's 4 fire hydrants in our park. We have 154 lots, 143 are occupied with homes. So, but just to get started, start early. That's my bit of advice. To get to start with the refinancing when you do get to that point. We have a meeting tomorrow with New York State. We have part of our loan is with New York State. They're staying in with our loan. So everything seems to be coming along pretty good.
And any other thoughts, concluding levels of frustration about the process? Doable? Tearing your hair out? I mean, emotionally, how has it been?
No, I think that we started early enough that, we've talked to different people. Mike's loss has definitely helped a lot with, ROC is kind of staying in with us through another, a bank, Niagara, or a national NCB cooperative bank. So I think I'm hoping it'll all come together within the next couple of weeks once we get these last studies done, and we'll be signing on the dotted line to get this all done. 10 years ago, our interest rate was higher. Now it's lower because of the way the interests are. So we have a lot of good options.
It's a good time to be refinancing.
So, yeah, it happened to work out good for our park.
And I mailed out the rest of those several dozen letters for the income survey. And once I'm better, I'll follow up with phone calls to make sure those start coming back in. So that was another thing, income
Yeah.
survey.
Mhm.
And there was a list. Molly left me with a list. Make sure you have all these documents. And Brenda, Carol, any questions about the process that come to mind as you hear from Dennis or that you came to this?
Well, it sounds like Dennis is more established than us. So how long have they been established?
Yeah, well, this is their 10th year. That's why they're having to do this.
Oh,
Right.
okay. That's totally different where we're
Yeah.
at. We're only on, Carol, is it our third year or
It's
second year?
it's 3 years. We have
Yeah.
until 2029 for us to
All right.
renew or
All right,
refinance,
so
I
we're
should say.
really. All
It
right.
goes
so,
fast, everybody.
John
I'm telling
and the
you.
rest of- So John and the rest of you, we are struggling. It's
You know-
very difficult.
I have
Well-
a quick
Go ahead.
quick
Carol.
question.
And
I
let's
find
get back
it's
to,
interesting with Dennis, that you have hydrants in your community.
Yes.
Are they required?
Well, when we bought the park, the hydrants were in here.
Oh, okay. Because
And
we don't have any here. And being that you
Yeah.
mentioned it, it's like, that's
Yeah,
a
that's
question.
interesting. I'm surprised we haven't been assessed for that or forced to do that.
Yeah.
We don't
There-
have any, right, Carol?
No, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm asking if we're required, to have them
what
in the,
you have 80 homes?
oh, yes,
78
78,
occupied.
79.
Yeah.
No,
So
it's
there,
78
Yeah, it depends on the
occupied right
county. Depends on the county requirements typically.
now. Okay.
Marilla's 50%
Yeah.
bigger than you guys.
Well, we would have heard if we needed them then.
Yeah.
I'm sure,
But
yeah.
our problem is that we're very new and, becoming a co-op, and we're struggling with the infrastructure that was not taken care of. So, we have our budget and we're working with it, but we've had a lot of really disasters, I guess, is what it is, and a lot of money. So, this past year has been a struggle, and we've been working on the budget, and I think this next year coming forward is going to be a struggle. And we're a community, but we are pretty slim on amenities or anything. We have a mail room, we have a garbage room, and that's about it.
We don't have anything, really.
Well, you have
No,
a
we don't.
potential for a huge community room once you get that squared
Well, we
away
have
with
a
the
potential
ADA.
for a huge community room.
Yeah.
We have a potential for a huge community because we have, I think it's 70 acres to develop, but we don't have the infrastructure. And now the infrastructure that we have is crumbling, and we're repairing it as we go along. And unfortunately, I see going forward, we're going to be in that mode where we're on the back end and just keep fixing. And someday, hopefully, we'll get to the point where then we can get on the top of it. But we were left with a lot of
Yes.
difficulties and infrastructure that needs a lot of help.
Well, clearly we'll need to do a workshop next year on infrastructure and community development, block grant financing, and those kinds of approaches. And just we could have people come around and share hard-won wisdom about that kind of stuff. Anne, do you have any questions or thoughts as you guys look afar? It's pretty far in the future for you as well.
No, 4 years.
4 years.
Dennis, so on your New York State loan, did you have to did you refinance all of your loans?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
you
New
have
York
one.
State, New York State is staying in exactly what their loan is. We have the 30-year amortization. So New York, we're meeting with Madeline from New York State tomorrow on a Zoom meeting, just to go over what else we need. But they're going to stay in with their portion, and then we're refinancing our ROC portion.
Okay.
So which is
Right,
like 2 points.
so everybody, so everybody's clear. All of your subordinate loans from the state of New York were done under a program whereby the documents say they can roll over the loan 10 years at a time
Tutor.
to 30 years. So that's what Dennis is describing here.
Okay.
You have the same, each of you has the same type of loan from New York State. So you would have that opportunity as well to roll that cheaper money over and keep it if you wanted to.
And I would interject here, and this might be relevant to what Brenda was bringing up, is that Venture Lake is refinancing before their 10 years are up. And part of the reason is to access more capital. So they're refinancing and taking out a bigger state loan to grab some more capital because they feel like they need a bigger capital reserve, replacement reserve, working capital to address their infrastructure. And
But
that's
John, I don't think Brittany Terrace is even in that arena based on our purchase of Brittany Terrace as a co-op and the fact that we have the $5 million grant, which you already know the specifics that we're struggling with, but IRS, I don't even think we're anywhere near refinancing.
Yeah, well, it's just something to keep in mind in the future as you address infrastructure issues.
Well, we
The
have
other-
until,
The other key thing to keep in mind about refinancing, and we'll talk some more about what ROC USA Capital offers, but generally, some of you have no prepayment penalty in your loan with us, and some of you do have prepayment penalties in your loan with us. So refinancing early may be to your advantage if there's no prepayment penalty. But if there is a prepayment penalty, that's something that has to get negotiated out with us and the investors in your loan. So for example, Lakeville and Marilla have no prepayment penalties at all in your notes with us. Brittany Terrace, you do, based on the investor who bought into that deal.
Oh, no kidding. How can that be?
It's not a
Another,
terrible one. It's not a
roadblock.
terrible one, but there is one.
Yeah, but that's a roadblock. I didn't know that.
But I think,
Well, that's-
given who it is also National Co-op Bank, who Dennis is also now working with. They would potentially waive it if they were going to be part of any refinance. So that's just
Oh, okay.
that's just another thing to keep in mind when you look at refinancing. And again, I'm not suggesting, Brendan and Carol, you do that soon, because as you said,
we can't
you're
do
only,
anything right now.
we have until
We're locked up.
2029.
right, you've got plenty of time.
Yeah.
The reason,
Yeah, and we're locked in with IRS and the grant, so we're not even anywhere near refinancing. But I didn't realize there was a penalty, but like you said, we can work around that. So that'll be something
yeah,
that we'll look at later.
yeah, no need to worry about it now, but it is generally
Yeah.
something everybody should look at in their notes with us. And, I don't
Okay.
remember all of them. Of course, I'd have to look them up myself as well, but before this call, I thought that would come up, so I looked them up.
Okay.
So Michael, what would you say is really important for people to keep in mind as they go into the process sooner or much later
Yeah,
down
I think
the road?
Dennis gave you excellent advice. Start a year ahead of time. before your maturity date, we will be reaching out to you a year ahead of time before your maturity date to just let you know what we, have to offer. But I know that others like Meadow Valley in New York have used a local bank to refinance, and that's okay. ROC USA Capital is not your only option. You've been in business, some of you longer than others, but you have at least a few years, and in the case of Marilla, many years of audited or reviewed financial statements that represent your business's financial health. And so we would encourage you not just to talk to us, but to talk to whomever else in your local market you think might be a good option for you. And there's no requirement that you refinance with ROC USA Capital, but we will be reaching out to you about a year ahead of time, because as Dennis said, there are several pieces of due diligence if you refinance with us that need to be done over, like the appraisal, the property conditions report, the income survey. Just for our IRS compliance purposes as a nonprofit, we want to make sure if the IRS ever audited us, we could say, we did this refinance loan and we didn't rely on income information from 10 years ago or 9 years ago, when some of the people who did it back then aren't even living in the community anymore. So we do require that to be done over the way it was done initially. That's just for our protection. That's for our protection with our status with the IRS. It's not that we're looking to see whether your income went up or down individually. It's just, we need to validate that the group, still meets the low income standards the IRS has for us. So that does take time. Dennis mentioned that interest rates are lower today than they were 10 years ago. That's certainly true. We've had several borrowers, not in New York, but in Massachusetts, Montana, a couple of other places, come to us last year and earlier this year, well in advance of year 9 or 10, like in year 7, 8 of their 10-year term, and say, we'd like to refinance early because interest rates are so low. Can we do that? And yes, of course you can do that. You're not prevented from refinancing at any point in the 10-year term. So, maybe John and folks at Patstone can keep you up to date on, long-term interest rates. You can always call us or email us and ask us what our current rate is. Because these 3 or 4 borrowers did refinance in the last 12 months and lowered their interest rates quite a bit. That's not, in our best financial interest, because we were making, 5 or 6% interest on the old loan. But because we're a nonprofit lender and we want to retain good borrowers who want to continue to do business with us, whether it's year 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, we will look at a refinance, because if it's better for you to refinance early and lower your interest rate, like any homeowner would do. I've done it, 3 times myself in the last 6 years for my house. It's just a smart thing to do if interest rates are low. So don't worry about what year it is. If it's the will of the group to look for a refinance option, I would just say, don't do it in the first 5 years, because any bank you would go to in your local community or credit union would probably want to see 5 years of history of your operations. But anytime after that, I think it's fair game to talk to us, talk to your local banks or credit unions and say, would you be interested in refinancing us? So long story short, yeah, there's been a handful of borrowers in our portfolio who have done it in the last 12 to 18 months because interest rates were low. And they were in years 7, 8 of their term. Yeah,
Yeah,
Carol.
but we have, some way to go until 2029.
Sure.
But who knows what the interest rates will be at that time. Is there a possibility that with the interest rate that we have now, we could continue with that, or that's out of the question?
Well, you're right. The market changes, and nobody can predict what interest rates will be
Right,
next year.
I understand that, yeah.
Or 5 years from now. But you're working with John and with Pat Stone, and they're certainly paying attention to all of that in the marketplace because they work on all kinds of affordable housing projects. So yeah, I mean, once a year, it's probably worth just looking. You can find it in the newspaper, you can find it online. I go to the US Treasury Department's interest rate sheet about once a week, but you don't need to do that. Just, once a year, check it and see what it is compared to a year before. And it might be low or it might be higher. You just gotta check it once a year.
I believe our interest rate is 5 point something.
Yeah, yours is pretty good.
Yeah.
Dennis's and some that were done earlier were over 6%. So it was definitely worth their while to look at that sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Just a couple other things for general, knowledge. What we offer right now at ROC USA Capital as far as refinance is 2 different ways to go for a first mortgage refinance. One is pretty much like the loan you have with us today, but instead of up to none of you used our up to 110% loan to value product because you had state money that is also in your deal. But for our refinance product, our maximum loan to value is 95%, because obviously after 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 years, it's not the initial purchase any longer. We want any refinance we do to be within 95% of current appraised value. That's why, as Dennis said, there's a new appraisal done. And in pretty much every community that's been reappraised, whether it's New York, Massachusetts, Montana, somewhere else, values have gone up over the last several years. And that's because manufactured housing communities are being viewed by all kinds of investors, big and small, as a good investment. And so they're getting valued at higher per site values than they were 5 or 7 years ago. So you're probably, if you went and paid for your own appraisal, my guess is it would be worth at Brittany Terrace a little bit more, at Lakeview substantially more, because you've been there for 6 or 7 years now. 5, yeah, okay, yeah. So I think that's just a reality in the marketplace. Large national investors are looking at manufactured housing as a good investment, and they are buying up communities at record numbers, and they're driving up the values, which is a double-edged sword, because then it's more expensive for the first group to buy it. But if you're in a refinance position, you're in a good place. As Dennis said, their appraised value went up, about 50%. So
Good.
So that's good. You as all of you reinvest in your infrastructure, as Marilla has. Yeah, you increase the value every day by doing that. And every day you bring your budget in, or every year you bring your budget in, at what you projected or better, and you're putting away a little more cash, you're showing that you're managing the property well, and that's going to increase value as well. And you're keeping lot rents generally below market. And when the appraiser goes out and appraises, they're not going to use necessarily the lot rents you're charging yourselves as quote unquote the market lot rents. They'll use what they see around you in other properties as the market lot rents. So if you're at, I don't know what your rents are, but let's just say they're $550 and the community down the street is $625, they're going to probably use $625 in their analysis because that's the investor community. So all of that helps you refinance because your rents might be below market, because you're increasing the value of the property through your investment in infrastructure. all of that helps you refinance, whether interest rates are up or down. And the other thing with our refinance products is, as John mentioned, Venture Lake may do this with the state, that's fine. But also, yeah, you can refinance just the amount of the mortgage with us, or you can refinance and do improvements if the value allows for that. And so it's not that the 95% loan to value is meant to discourage you from using refinance proceeds to do improvement. Your value should be higher when you refinance, so there should be room within 95% of value to both refinance the existing debt and do some improvements if you want. Okay, so that's our standard 95% loan to value first mortgage, which stays with us at ROC USA Capital. And it's a fixed interest rate again, as you've had with us from the beginning. We don't do variable rates or graduated interest rates. We give you always a fixed rate for the term of the loan, whether it's 10 years or more. And the other thing that I know Dennis and the board at Marilla looked at and is still looking at is, when you bought your property, we offered you 10 years, 30-year amortization, which means your payments every month are based on a 30-year schedule. What some people look at when they refinance is a shorter amortization period so that the payments, the principal is paid down a little faster. That's a technical point. We don't have to talk about that in detail, but some people will look at 25-year amortization at a refinance point to try to pay down that principal a little faster. Don't worry about that now. When you get into an application process with us or anybody else, you can have that conversation. Real quickly, the other product we offer, and what Marilla is working through right now, is we have for years been trying to get Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the two largest actors in the manufactured home community lending space, to work with ROC USA to finance resident-owned communities. We believe, because of all your good work as homeowners who live there, you're a better risk than any investor. You're going to take better care of your place that you live in than any investor would. And Fannie Mae has finally come around in the last 18 months and said, okay, we'll work with you, ROC USA, on refinance loans only, not new acquisitions, but refinance loans that have 5 years of a track record of ownership or more. So what Dennis and the board at Marilla and all the members are working through now is actually a first mortgage loan application with National Cooperative Bank, which is our partner with Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae works through designated approved lenders, and National Co-op Bank is one of them for manufactured housing. And so we have a three-way partnership between ROC USA Capital, National Cooperative Bank, and Fannie Mae to do these first mortgage refinance loans. And they can do it at 75% loan to value. And then if more money is needed beyond that to refinance the existing first mortgage, ROC USA Capital can make a second loan up to 90% of appraised value. So all of that deliberation is going on now with the application Marilla put in. But the advantage of a Fannie Mae National Cooperative Bank first mortgage loan, even though it's lower loan to value, is lower interest rate than we can provide ourselves, because Fannie Mae has so much more economic power in the marketplace, right? ROC USA. So Dennis, what's the rate that they quoted you? 4.25 or something like that?
4.45 or 4.43, right around
Yeah.
there.
So 475, yeah.
Yeah, so today in the mid fours, which is certainly lower than anything else we offered you 5 years ago, 3 years ago,
Right.
or 10 years ago. So yeah, Fannie Mae just has so much capital and so much power in the marketplace. They can deliver a lower cost refinance loan. And that's why we wanted to partner with them. We wanted you guys to have that option because that saves you lots of money every month. And so that's another option that we offer and will continue to offer. It does take a little longer to go through that process, as Dennis is experiencing right now, but we'll make it faster as we go. We're sort of in the first couple here right now. It'll go faster. And the loan documents will be a little more complex, but it's still basically the same, you know, fixed interest rate for 10 years and a lower interest rate. So that's an advantage. And because they're working with us at ROC USA and not on their own, you know, they are looking for ROC USA and Pathstone in this case to continue to support the borrowers that go through this refinance process for the next 10 years. So that's that doesn't go away with this Fannie Mae product too. You still get the ROC USA and Pathstone services, and it's all built into the interest rate. There's no additional charge for that over the next 10 years. So that's what we have to offer. I think also to Dennis's point and to, you know, Brenda's point, infrastructure is obviously the boogeyman in most communities. And you have a pretty complicated, both of you have pretty complicated sewer, you know, treatment facilities, which have a lot of cost associated with them just to maintain them.
Yeah.
And so
Yes, we do.
I'll give you one potential good piece of news in addition to what John mentioned in terms of what the state of New York is potentially offering. In the federal bill that's in the House, in Congress right now, the Build Back Better Act, there is, believe it or not, $500 million of that infrastructure money specifically designated for manufactured home communities.
Oh
Which
my.
once the House and the Senate, you know, stop, you know, playing pinball with this piece of legislation and it's finalized, there could be, as John mentioned, through the CDBG program, the block grant program, another $500 million for manufactured housing infrastructure investment. Again, considered part of the big infrastructure package that has been debated now since the beginning of the year. So we'll.
Well, that's refreshing, but I gotta be honest with you. After what, and I'm sure Carol will agree with me, after what, and we're still going through the $5 million grant that we got from New York State for low income housing and the IRS problem. I don't know. You know, I hope it works for us, but
well, Brenda,
now we're struggling with that too.
It's apples and toaster ovens we're talking, because the community development block grant process, we already have 2 communities that have been through that, Woodlands and Newtown, and they're in the, you know, that money came, fixed up the, you know, the water, the sewer system and the water system, and the money came, it fixed stuff, and I was just helping them on the reporting process. So completely different beast. Michael, did I hear right from Paul Bradley that ROCs and nonprofit manufactured home communities would be somehow have some leg up on privately owned manufactured home communities in trying to get to that trough to feed at?
Yes. So Paul knows more about it than I do. He's been working with the the folks on Capitol Hill. I have not. So if that's what he told you, sure, that's correct.
Yeah, so there's $500 million. There's only 280 ROCs in the United States. So, and there's not that many more nonprofits. So, you know, it's quite likely that it's going to be sliced up into significant slices.
Yeah, and again, you know, this is still not passed, so keep your fingers and your toes crossed that it does pass. And then, you know, HUD has to write the rules, and so it'll take a little while to become available. But as John said, the CDBG process is a many-year vetted and tested process. So they don't have to write all the CDBG rules over again. They just have to write the new provision that includes this. So we're looking forward to, you know, working with you and everybody else across the network to access that money should it become available. And that's just a recent thing that, as I understand it, you know, the negotiations over this, you know, could go on another 24 hours, or it could go on for weeks, you know, nobody knows, but it's in there. And it's the first time that there's been any set aside of CDBG money for manufactured housing that we know of in the federal
All
pot.
right, that's good. That's good news.
Yeah. So yeah, keep your fingers crossed, and Paul will let us all know when it's finalized and if they cut any of it out, but so far so good.
So any concluding questions or thoughts from anybody?
Well, one of my thoughts is, so we're talking about
And,
refinancing
Brenda and then
for,
Ann?
we're talking about refinancing for the co-op, the community, right?
Specifically, yes,
Yeah.
not for private homes. Yeah.
Well, yes, so my next question is, for people that need to refinance for the private homes, that's a whole nother discussion, and maybe we can
That-
be directed
yeah,
towards that
for that-
someday.
Yeah, well, for that discussion, I would recommend that Brittany Terrace talk to New York State about becoming a community with an agreement around Sunny May. And then you'd be able to refinance your home through the Sunny May program at an incredibly low mortgage rate. You know, like 2 something is what it was recently. And as opposed to like 7, 8, 9% for chattel loan refinancing. And but the whole community, all of Brittany Terrace would need to approach the state and say, we'd like to we'd like to on board the state Sunny May program. So that would have to be an ongoing discussion with your board. And Ann, you had your hand up, and you've got your yeah, you're unmuted now.
Yeah, so maybe down the road we can discuss that, because I'm sure
Yeah,
a
if you
lot
guys,
of
if you have a bunch of
residents
people that
don't
need
need
to
a mortgage, but for the ones that do, that may be. So we'll discuss that at another time, and maybe as a treasurer, I'll pursue that.
Okay, because yeah, for a lot of the ROCs in New York, you know, the vast majority of the homes are not worth more than $50,000, and a lot of them are in the, you know, single digits.
Right.
You guys have homes in over $200,000, so there's a
Yes,
lot of
we
debt
do.
load people in the, yeah, so it's much different. Go ahead, Ann.
Has anybody had an experience with the New York State money where they would not refinance you?
We haven't, when we approach them, because the way it's written, if we could find, we're supposed to get 3 other banks or loans, quotes. if we can find someone to match their interest rate, which was 2.9%, then they wouldn't refinance us. So we went to 3 banks. 2 of them said no completely. The third one, M&T, said yes, we could refinance, but it was at the same interest rate what we're at now. So New York State says, well, we can't match that, but that's where the income survey comes in, because we have to prove that we're still modern, median income to low income families. But New York State didn't quite, I guess tomorrow I'll find out exactly when we meet with Madeline from New York State about the loan and what other, but as far as I know, they said, as long as we stay in, we're not asking for any more money from New York other than what the loan is. We're just going to carry it through. That they would definitely be willing to stay in. So I think they would, continue that program to keep
Yeah,
everybody
and
with the low end.
And that's how it worked with Meadow Valley too, was the same thing. The state didn't have any interest in not continuing to lend the money.
Okay.
I think it's in the states, I guess, Michael, help me if I'm wrong, help me out if I'm misunderstanding this, but I think it's in the state's interest to continue to help finance, and preserve affordable housing in this way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That program that, you all have used with New York State is like 30 years old. It started back in the late 80s, I think. And so, yeah, they've had a long history of supporting resident ownership of manufactured home communities, even well before ROC USA was even involved. And so, yeah, I think, as you both just said, as long as nobody can replace their money at the same price, and it's always low, right? It's always been 1 or 2 or 3% interest. As long as nobody can replace it, yeah, they have an interest in continuing to provide it, because they have a mandate from the legislature to support affordable housing. That's my understanding. Again, I think even before Meadow Valley, I think Champion Homes, which was the first community in New York we financed in 2008, they refinanced a couple years ago with a private bank, but I think they also kept the state money as well. So as Dennis said, I think it'd be pretty hard to find a bank that's going to provide, 2 or 2.5% money. So I think it's pretty safe bet that they'll stay in.
It's kind of hard to find a bank even to refinance because there's no collateral involved, is what we were told from 2 different banks. They said they can't take the people's houses because they own them. So
Yeah, but they're not
I don't know.
financing the houses though. They didn't understand what they were doing.
Yeah.
The ignorance of those banks work to our advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine with me, like I said. So that keeps New York in. M&T Bank did say yes, they would. I mean, we worked with them. They gave us some price quotes, and then we also talked to ROC, and they were compared right at neck and neck between M&T and ROC and the National Cooperative Bank. I think National Cooperative Bank's just a few points lower on the interest rate than M&T.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a good question to ask tomorrow of people at the state, under what circumstances would they not want to continue? I think it's very, very few.
Mhm.
Any other questions, Ann?
Not right now. I just feel that the middle to low income housing is even more threatened than it's ever been because of the price of real estate.
Yeah.
I'm feeling that even some people might not, that are in here now, might not be able to come in now, today, that came in like 10 years ago. Houses in my place,
Yeah,
the
you-
houses are going for ridiculous prices.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's crazy. And I mean, when I bought in, it was after the big real estate crush, the bank, 2008, 2010. And so things were cheaper, things have lost, their value. But now I feel that the prices that the houses are selling for now are more than they were to build. And some people, and like I talked to somebody, a mobile home builder, like that would come in and put in a house. It's like about 200,000 to put in a 3-bedroom, 2-car garage, what we have here,
Mhm.
driveway, I mean, we have all the utilities. We have all water, sewer, gas, cable, like we have all that. So that's what's kind of like scared me a little, because I have people in here that are living on very minimal income. And I know there's more people out there that want to be in here, you know what I mean? But it's not affordable.
Yeah.
Well, this is why we have to expand the opportunities in New York State through opportunity to purchase legislation.
Yeah.
So that people in other parks, manufactured home communities around the state can get an opportunity to preserve the prices because everything's going up. And
Yeah.
as Michael was saying, the speculators are very interested in the market, and the number of out-of-state owners in New York State has just started to climb precipitously. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man.
I just want to say the newer homes that are coming in now are for here in Brittany Terrace are really beautiful homes. But to be honest, like Ann said, I wouldn't have been able to afford to come in here now at that price. I've been here since 2000 and I paid very little for my home back then, but now I couldn't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially people that are on fixed incomes and,
Yeah.
in here, when a husband and wife come in, because we're 55 and over, and I have 25 single owner houses now because the husbands or the wives have passed away. So they
Right.
lose some of their income, like they don't get as much.
Yeah.
And some women don't get their husband's pensions anymore, because
Mhm.
they didn't read the fine print when they retired, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's scary out there.
This
That's
is
a
why
big
we're in this
problem.
business.
That's a big problem in Brittany Terrace because I've been here since 2018 and I have experienced at least 4 or 5 people that have lost their spouses and they have to leave. They can't
Right.
afford it because they lost that
Mm.
Social Security. So that's really, really concerning. I mean,
Yeah.
our lot rents and our utilities are low, yet when they lose their spouse, they have to leave. I mean, that's a real concern to keep a co-op going.
Right. I mean, people that are coming in here now are selling their houses in this up market. And so they're driving the prices up. But the people that come in that, say they don't have a house to sell, or they have something that's not as valuable to sell, or it's a fixer upper or something, and then they want to come in here, it's not affordable anymore. I mean, unless you have a big lump sum.
But the scary part is I know that people have come in here that have bought these houses. I know I'm one of them that had equity in a home, a large home, came in here and downsized and are living within our realm of retirement, and it's still difficult in New York. So that's very concerning.
Yeah.
And that's why when we do the budget and we have to look at lot rents and water and sewage, and if we have to raise it, that's an issue because people, if $20 could break them, I mean, they lose their spouse and they lose their home. That's a big problem. And that's
Yeah.
really concerning when you own a co-op.
So this is, maybe we can think about how to do a workshop that addresses this, because this is like basically the issue of gentrification, something that I wouldn't be able to move into my neighborhood. I moved into this neighborhood 30 years ago. No way I could afford this neighborhood now. Back then, you know,
It's very,
as a 30-year-old man, I never would have been able to move into the neighborhood I'm in right now. So, yeah, let's think about, you know, what are some possible ways the ROCs in New York can address that besides expanding the opportunity through opportunity to purchase. You know,
Yeah, and you have several that are, if not 55 plus age restricted, have, you know, populations that are older.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
so it's
nobody
not
wants to
just-
move
it's
in
not just
together.
one or two places, right?
Well, you know, with that, with the moving in, what's happening here is we're seeing more and more. Of course, they're over 55, but they're moving in with their elderly parents for whatever reasons. They need to take care of them, you know, and help them out. So that's what's
That's
happening
interesting.
here. And like you say, because it's 55 and older, you know, if someone, you know, like for example, it's just an example, like my son, if I needed him here to help me, he can't because he's not 55, you know? So, you know, I feel that's
yeah,
an
that's
issue, but
another, that's another big problem for Brittany Terrace,
yeah,
because we have residents that whether they've lost, well, there's two problems. Residents have lost their spouse and they can't live here anymore because they don't have the income. That's a big concern for the community. Secondly, the other concern is whether there's parents or only one parent left, they need help. And because the child that will come in and help them or the caretaker, they're not 55, and so it's not allowed in the bylaws. That's a big problem.
Are you,
That's a
you're saying
huge
that they
problem for our community.
move into the same home?
no, because they're
No,
not
because
55
they're
and
not
older.
55.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's
And that's
reading
a
the,
huge
That's not-
problem.
Yeah, I don't think
that's
I don't
misreading
think
the
that's
law.
what the fair housing law was
Yeah,
trying to do. So yeah, I would take another look at that and your bylaws and yeah, see if you can change that, because certainly a caregiver shouldn't have to be
Well,
55.
we might be able to change it on the bylaws.
well, your
I'm
bylaws
not
wouldn't,
sure right now. it's
Brenda,
not
Brenda,
there.
Brenda, your bylaws wouldn't
What?
pass legal muster if that's the way they're written. You- They're, they're in violation of the United States
Yeah,
Fair Housing Law. So your bylaws would need to align themselves with the federal law around that.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that on our
I
end.
know,
too. It's a
but we
good
have
question.
another problem. But we have the other problem with the $5 million grant for the low income housing that we took.
We're gonna
What
figure
about
that
it?
out. We're not gonna let,
That might
we're
be
not
a
gonna let you
problem.
get stuck with the bill for that. We're gonna figure that out. Plan B is
Well,
still very valid. The state has not backed down from that offer at all. There's
well, we
still,
really need to look at that because a lot of people are struggling with that.
you mean it just psychologically, but the fact is that you know, converting it to a deferred loan is a viable option, and it's just a matter of hearing back from the IRS first. We just need to get a hard no from the IRS, and once you've got the hard no, the state's gonna, you know, engage on that issue, and they have made no indication that have changed their position of interest in working with you guys on that process. So,
Because you do understand, like, am I clear on this? Like, I really am concerned about people that are 55 and over and live here. And like, I'm thinking for myself, if I can't take care of myself, my husband passes, and my son says, well, I'll come in and help you, but he's only 50.
that
Like,
that
he
should be
can't.
allowed.
They won't let us.
That-
But
That's
right now,
not,
we can't do that.
Well,
No,
they're
Who is them?
yeah, who's them?
the board,
The board, the board.
you'll be
the
wrong.
board.
See, this is why you need to talk to your
I'm reading, I'm reading
CTAC. You
your
need to talk
bylaws
to
right
me.
now.
Yeah.
I don't see anything in the membership section that says you even have to be 55. It says 18 years or older.
Yeah,
Well,
but
we need
also
to-
they
we
say
need
that
to
at least
pursue this
one,
then.
what was that, Brenda?
Well, no, we need to pursue this because this is a huge problem for the community.
Yeah,
Well, you're
and
paying.
we were,
You guys
we
are
were with-
paying me. Use me. I'm your technical assistant. This is
I'm
what I'm
us-
here to do.
I'm
gonna
using
use
you, John. You gotta look into this here, because people need help. And because the child is a
Yeah.
son or a daughter or whoever
Well, this
is
is a-
under 55, at first there used to be at least one person in the household had to be 55.
All right. Well, give me a
Okay.
call. Let's put that on another call.
Okay,
I definitely
Okay.
want
No,
to get this. Is the first I'm hearing about it.
Yeah,
That
it's,
would be great.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely review that with an attorney, because I think
Great.
that's a legal issue. Yeah, my
That would be
understanding,
great.
I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my word for it. But my understanding of the fair housing law is that when a 55+ community is created, at least one member of the household must
has
be.
to be 55.
It doesn't have to be all of them.
That's
is my
right.
understanding.
Great.
But yeah,
Yeah.
check with a lawyer who knows the fair housing law.
Yeah. And there's percentages that come into play. It is
All right, that's great
7:01,
because that's a
everybody.
huge issue.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
That would be tragic. We got to figure that out.
It is tragic.
Yes,
Well,
it is.
It seems like it doesn't need to be. So it's
No,
7:01,
it shouldn't be.
and I want to thank everybody. And I hope this was useful, and we got it on
Very.
tape. And hopefully this will be around for anybody who has any other questions about this process. So thank you, everybody.
Great.
Yeah, have a
Well,
good
thank you
evening,
all.
everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Right.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks. We'll see you, John. Hopefully tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see what Madeline has to say.
Yeah.
On to the next thing.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Thursday they're coming to do our